Long before modern cinemas and glowing neon billboards filled the streets, there stood a grand theatre built from stone, velvet curtains and golden chandeliers. During its early years, it was the pride of the city. Crowds gathered in elegant suits and shimmering dresses. Laughter echoed through the marble halls, and the stage lights glowed like tiny suns against the velvet drapes. But as decades passed, the applause faded. The once lively corridors grew quiet, and the grand hall that used to thunder with music became a place of whispers and shadows. Workers who stayed late began to report unusual feelings, as if someone unseen was watching from the balcony. Some claimed they heard distant footsteps when the building was empty. Others spoke of faint music playing from instruments that no one had touched for years. The theatre never truly closed, yet it never truly felt alive again either. It simply existed, waiting, listening, and those who stepped inside after dark, often left with the same uneasy thought that the stage was never empty at all. In its early years, the theatre was the pride of the city. Elegant crowds arrived beneath glowing lights, dressed in their finest clothes, filling the halls with laughter and applause. Chandeliers shimmered above red, velvet seats while orchestras played music that seemed to bring the entire building to life. Performers stepped onto the stage believing they were part of something timeless. But even on these glorious nights, a few strange moments slipped quietly into memory. Some guests later spoke of feeling watched from the balconies above. Others claimed they saw figures standing where no tickets had ever been sold. Backstage, mirrors occasionally reflected shapes that vanished in a blink. Musicians paused mid-performance, certain someone had brushed past them, though the stage was empty. Most dismissed these as tricks of light or tired imagination. Yet the whispers continued, and beneath the music and celebration grew a subtle feeling that the theatre was never truly empty, and the audience was never entirely made of the living. As the nights grew quieter, the theatre began to change. Security guards patrolling the empty halls often reported strange sensations. The feeling that someone was walking just a few steps behind them, even when the aisles were completely empty. Flashlights revealed shadows that vanished the moment they were seen, and balconies that should have been dark sometimes held figures that refused to move. Backstage, heavy curtains shifted without wind, and dressing room doors creaked open as if welcoming unseen guests. Mirrors became the most unsettling of all, reflecting shapes that did not belong to the room. Technicians swore that stage lights switched on by themselves, while footprints appeared across dusty floors with no visible source. Musicians spoke of hearing piano notes echo through the hall long after midnight, each sound clear, yet no hands touched the keys on the staircases. Some claimed they passed strangers who dissolved into thin air, leaving only silence behind. And on certain nights, the empty seats no longer looked empty at all. The theatre was no longer whispering. It was beginning to reveal itself. As the strange incidents continued, the silence surrounding the theatre began to break. Security guards, cleaners, and former performers slowly started sharing their experiences, each story carrying the same uneasy detail, the feeling of not being alone. Backstage workers whispered about doors opening on their own and shadows that moved against the light. Some described mirrors reflecting figures that vanished the moment they looked twice. What began as private concern soon became public rumor. Local newspapers mentioned unexplained disturbances, and radio hosts discussed the theatre late into the night. Crowds gathered outside the entrance, curious yet hesitant, pointing toward the building that once symbolized celebration. Authorities stepped inside to investigate, but even their presence failed to calm the growing tension. The more people spoke, the heavier the atmosphere became. It was no longer just a performer's tale or a guard's imagination. The theatre had become a story shared by an entire community, and with every retelling, the mystery only deepened. By the time investigators finally entered the theatre, the building had already earned a reputation that stretched far beyond the city. Equipped with cameras, sound recorders, and thermal devices, the team began documenting every corner of the structure. Their goal was simple: find a logical explanation. At first, the silence felt ordinary. Empty seats, dim corridors, and aging curtains created nothing more than an abandoned atmosphere. But as the hours passed, their equipment started reacting in ways they could not easily dismiss. Sudden spikes in readings appeared without clear cause, while audio recorders captured faint sounds that none of them remembered hearing. Footsteps echoed from distant hallways, even when the team stood completely still. Lights flickered without warning, and shadows seemed to shift where no one was present. The investigators remained professional, yet their expressions revealed growing uncertainty. What they expected to be a routine inspection was slowly turning into something far more difficult to explain, and the night was only halfway over. In the moments that followed the chaos, the theater fell into an unnatural calm. The same halls that echoed with sudden noises only minutes earlier now stood completely silent, as if the building itself had chosen to retreat back into darkness. Investigators reviewed their footage on the spot, replaying every second with careful attention. What they saw on the screens did not always match what they remembered witnessing with their own eyes. Some shadows appeared where no one had stood. Certain sounds repeated without a visible source, and brief figures seemed to form between frames before disappearing again. Despite the unsettling discoveries, no physical evidence explained how these moments occurred. The team gathered their equipment, speaking less than before, each person absorbed in their own thoughts. Outside, the night air felt strangely heavier than when they arrived. They left with recordings, data, and countless unanswered questions, but one shared conclusion remained clear. Whatever presence had stirred within those walls was no longer simply a rumor. It had become a mystery that refused to be ignored. When morning finally arrived, the theater stood in complete silence. The fog outside slowly faded, and the city resumed its ordinary rhythm. As if nothing unusual had happened during the night, inside, the lobby remained still. Dust floated gently through beams of light, settling over cables and forgotten equipment. The stage looked untouched, calm beneath a single fading glow. Up in the balcony, empty seats watched over the hall like quiet witnesses. Newspapers would later question the investigation, debating what was real and what was imagined. Old posters along the hallway continued to peel, holding memories of performances long gone. The dressing room mirrors reflected nothing but emptiness. The theater doors were eventually locked once again. Life outside moved forward, people passing by without stopping. Yet some claim that on certain evenings, faint shapes appear behind the windows, and though the building now rests in silence, many believe its story is far from over. Night eventually returned to the theater. The streets outside emptied once again, and a single faint light glowed behind one forgotten window. Inside, the lobby stood still beneath a flickering bulb, shadows stretching farther than before. On the stage, the curtain slowly drifted closed, as though concluding a performance no one could see. One seat in the balcony seemed quietly occupied, its cushion pressed by something unseen. A shadow shifted above, watching from the darkness before disappearing into it. Backstage, a lone light swung gently, casting moving shapes across silent walls. The investigation footage remained stored away, a frozen frame holding questions without answers. The exit doors creaked slightly open, inviting the cold night air inside. Fresh prints marked the dusty floor, leading toward the stage. From behind the curtain, a faint silhouette lingered only for a moment, and as the theater faded back into darkness, one truth remained: some stories never truly end. Years have passed since that unforgettable night. The theater still stands, restored in parts, yet holding the weight of its history within its walls. Visitors now walk through its lobby, listening to stories once whispered in fear. Some come out of curiosity, others come searching for answers. A child may stare toward the stage, unaware of the legends that linger there. Old photographs remind everyone of brighter performances and crowded seats. Security cameras quietly watch after hours, recording empty rows beneath dim lights. On certain evenings, fresh flowers appear at the center of the stage, left by unknown hands, but a few glance back, feeling something they cannot explain. In the reflection of darkened windows, shapes sometimes seem to shift, and though time continues to move forward, the theater remains keeping its silence and its secrets. Most who leave the building carry only a memory. It was just another evening tour. The theater was minutes away from closing. Nothing felt unusual. Mid-sentence, the guide suddenly stopped. His expression changed, like he heard something no one else did. Then someone noticed it. up in the balcony, a shape sitting where no one was supposed to be. One visitor slowly turned her head. Her eyes widened. She wasn't imagining it. In the security room, the cameras were still rolling, and on one screen, something moved across the stage. Back inside the theater, the microphone shifted, as if someone had brushed past it. Then it got colder, cold enough to see their breath indoors. A child pointed toward a single balcony seat. "It's right there," they whispered, but the seat was empty. The lights above the stage flickered, not once, but again and again. Outside, in the window's reflection, a faint figure stood behind them. They had no idea. Later, after everyone left, security footage revealed something chilling. A shadow seated among empty rows. By midnight, the theater was silent again, empty, except maybe it wasn't. The theater still stands today, restored and reopened after decades of history. What was once the site of strange and unsettling moments is now a place where concerts, performances, and tours happen almost every night. Thousands of visitors walk through these doors every year, enjoying music and entertainment, without ever realizing the stories connected to this building. The balcony seats are still exactly where they have always been, looking down over the stage, just like they did many years ago. Security cameras now monitor every corner of the theater, and according to the official reports, nothing unexplained has ever been recorded again. But some visitors claim that late at night, when the theater becomes quiet, one seat in the balcony sometimes looks occupied. Most staff members say it's only shadows and imagination, but others say that if you stay long enough and look carefully toward the balcony, you might notice someone sitting there. So before this video ends, take one last look at the balcony and tell me in the comments, did you see anything?